All right, so going back to what I was saying earlier, that this is the part where you were expecting when you're taking the web design class, which is to learn HTML. So HTML is everything that on the web. So everything on the web uses HTML. From small to large build websites, they all use HTML. So you have like Twitter or like Facebook, they all have HTML. There's no site that doesn't have it. And HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So that's just basically the acronym for it. And HTML is a set of tags we use to describe how our websites are structured. We surround the content of our web pages with these HTML tags. So it's just an example of a tag. Tag is just an example. It's not an actual tag. It's just an example of when you wrap content around tags. That's how websites are built. And then you use CSS, which is a cascading style sheets to style them. And I'll be going over CSS in a different class. But CSS tells the browser how we want tags to look like. So we can say we want this box to have a red background and we want this paragraph text to be purple. You can do those kind of things with CSS. So HTML coding is like creating a blueprint for the browser. So we can wrap this content of text and around a paragraph tag, so that way the browser knows it's a paragraph. And then we can use CSS to say we want the text to be white and then a background of like some kind of dark black color or something like that. So HTML tags are element names surrounded by angle brackets. So you have the angle bracket and then tag name, you close it, and then the content goes within it, and then you close it. The end tag is written like the start tag, but with a / inserted before the tag name. So it's just like exactly how it's structured. So you have that open tag, content, and then closing tag. And this whole thing basically creates what they call an HTML element. Have y'all ever used XML files before? No XML. Okay. Main thing is to always remember to close it when it's needed. So I'll go over some that you don't need to close, but most typically, I would say about 3-4 years ago, if you didn't close a tag, it would throw the whole website off. Browsers like Chrome and Safari, Firefox are a lot nicer to you as far as web developers, because they'll recognize, hey, you didn't close this tag. I'm not going to screw up the site just because you forgot it. So it's still going to look good, but then you have Internet Explorer that will not care and just your site does not look good. So Internet Explorer is the most difficult browser to develop till date. It's the worst. So these non-closing tags are things like the image tag, for example, doesn't have a closing tag. You can also nest them. So you can put elements inside other elements. This is called nesting. If we want to state that our cat is very grumpy, we could wrap the word very in a strong element, which means that the word is to be strongly emphasized.
Bold.
Exactly. And there's actually a tag called B for bold, but I guess the latest HTML organization decided strong is the one they want to use. But bold B will still work. So that would translate to that. So if you were to render that HTML code, you would see this.
Oh, for the bold?
Right. Well, in this case, it's strong. The tag name is strong. But yes, that's what you would use to bold something.
Is it only strong?
Yeah, so you could use B, like just the letter B, but typically now, as far as like correct markup, you're recommended to use the word strong. The next piece is HTML tag attributes. So HTML tags can have a set of properties which what are called attributes on them. Attributes help give more info to the browser how the tag should function or look. So in this case, I have a heading tag which I'm going to go over, and also class, which represents a stylistic or a CSS class, which again I'm going to go over more in deep for that. I'm setting the attribute class, and I'm setting a value to it. So I'm saying red, which represents that I should have a CSS class called red somewhere in my HTML files. So that's basically what the attribute is. So it's basically you have your tag here, and then there's a space between it, and then you have your attribute. And all the attributes need is an equal sign and a value within it wrapped in these double quotes. And you can have as many attributes within a tag. So you can say, of course, not repeating them, but you can have different types. And I'll go over different types in a little bit. So HTML attributes contain extra info about the element which you don't want to appear. This is an example of an image tag with the, what does the SRC mean?
Source. Remember from the MySpace days. I remember.
There you go. And what does that do?
It links. It just puts the image as an element.
Perfect.
I remember.
Those were the days.
Good old My Chemical Romance pictures on my Facebook or on my MySpace.
On MySpace, yeah, exactly. Do you still have one?
No, I don't think so.
You deleted
I think
it?
it got shut down.
It got shut down, the whole platform?
I know it got bought out by like Justin Timberlake,
Yeah.
and then they changed how it works, and
Yeah.
it doesn't look like it did when
Oh,
I was
no.
in middle school.
Yeah, I think they
changed
use.
the format of the profile.
Yeah, I think they use like a JavaScript framework. Well, that was a time. That was like 4 years ago, probably.
I
But
will create the new MySpace.
do it, man. Do it. I strongly feel like Facebook they lack that, but that's a whole different story. So yeah, so if you were to write this, HTML or the browser would render that. That's saying that I have this file, this image file. So it's a PNG file. Everybody's familiar with PNG files?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in case you're not, PNG files are basically transparent, like transparent files. And I'm using a directory called images where I have this file within it. And this is saying that this is relative, the relative source. So that means that my HTML file should see an images folder. If there is no images folder, you're not going to see an image. You're going to get like this little ugly red square saying like that file is missing. So sources are attribute. So the quotes, you're going to notice that they're double quotes. You could use single quotes as well, but chances are you might run into mixing them, which would cause an issue. So again, some browsers are nice, they play nice, so they'll still show what you want it to show. But in this case, if I put a double quote and then I end it with the single quote, browsers such as like Internet Explorer will not like it, so therefore there'll be an error. So I recommend just using double quotes. Just makes life easier. Oh, there you go. And then, so an HTML document is basically brought up of an HTML tag. So that's like the primary tag. You have an HTML opening tag. Then and then inside of it you have a head tag, and the head tag of an HTML document is part that is not displayed in the web browser when the page is loaded. It contains information such as the page title, links to CSS files, links to custom Fave icons. Fave icons are like those little icons that show up on the browser tab. It's like a little app-looking icon. And other metadata about the HTML, such as the author, description, keywords, things like that. That's what the head tag includes. Then you have that title tag that's within the head tag, which sets the title of your page, which is a title that appears in the browser tab. when the page is loaded, and is used to describe the page when you bookmark, favorite, and this tag, yeah. So also too, when Google crawls your website, it uses that title tag. The body tag is basically all the visual content. So everything you see within the browser window, all of that content is what is inside the body tag. So this is basically what it looks like. So you have that opening and closing HTML tag. Then you have your head tag. So it's opening and closing. And then nested within the head tag, you have your title tag. And then inside of the HTML tag, but notice that it's right after, so body is right after head, so it's not nested within it, like at the same level. Inside your body tag is what you have your content. So I'll explain the other tags, but it's just content essentially. So I'm just going to continue on. So white space is so no matter how much white space you use, which can include space characters, but also line breaks. The HTML parser reduces each one down to a single space when rendering the code. So why use so much white space? The answer is readability. It's so much easier to understand what is going on in your code if you have it nicely formatted and not just bunched up together in a big mess. So if you notice this first line, there's no spaces. Just a simple paragraph tag, the content within it, and a closing tag. This is the same code underneath it. There's a lot of spacing there. It's ugly, and when needed, it's good to have. And especially when you're nesting. So, for example, if I were to create this, notice this spacing here for my nesting. This is easy to read. If I were to have all of this in one line, it's going to take you at least 20 seconds to figure out. Maybe that's too much, but it's going to take you some time to figure out where you want to make edits to. Whereas if you have something like this that's nicely spaced out, you're going to be able to edit a lot easier. Also think of teams. So if someone else is editing your file or collaborating, they're going to hate seeing like a messed up code. So another thing is like make sure you make when you write code, make sure the spacing's good and it's readable. But the white space is not an issue. There, you can have as much space there if you want. And then these are HTML comments. So it's just basically like an angle bracket, an exclamation point, 2 dashes, whatever comment you want there, and then you close with 2 dashes and then the closing bracket. So you can add as many comments there. So comments are just for your code purposes. You can also see it when you go to a website. You do view page source. You can also see their comments. But they're not rendered on the browser. You're just simply commenting. It's really good if you have like a very long HTML code and you have to like separate them out in sections. Comments are really good to have. So to go over text fundamentals, one of the HTML's main jobs is to give text structure and meaning. Semantics refers to the meaning of a piece of code. So for example, what effect does running that line of JavaScript have, or what purpose or role does that HTML element have? So rather than what does it look like? So in this example, I have a paragraph tag that I have this style attribute, and style is basically where you can write styles for it. And you can say like, I want the font color, I want the background color, etc. I want the font size bigger. So if I were to say that I want this title to look like that title, but it's not a title, right? I could do that with styling it. So visually, as a user, I'd see it as a title. It looks big, it's bold, it's probably black. I don't know, whatever the case is, right? Or would you just write something like this, which is a heading tag? The heading tag, which I'll go over exactly what it means, but a heading tag is meant for titles, right? So that's what it's meant for. Versus using a different tag that you can do it, it's accomplishable visually, But the semantic idea is use the tags that it's meant to be. So try not to use tags that you're not supposed to use. So heading tags are just H1, and I'm going to go over the amount that they have. And then paragraphs are just paragraphs. So you can kind of compare it to like when you're reading a newspaper or a book. It has that same structure. If I were to write this in my HTML, this is how it would render. Basically, you guys already did it right now. Heading tags have up to 6, so there's H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. They all represent the main headings. Or sorry, H1 represents the main headings, H2 through 6 represents subheadings. So if I were to write this in my code and I were to render it, this is how the browsers automatically, without styling, they automatically scale them down, font size wise. So there's no styling done. This is the way the browser just works natively. There should only be one H1 tag within each page. This is very important. So if you have a page and you should create the title of that page, you should wrap that within an H1 tag, that's your main heading tag. And then below that, you can have H2, H3, and all that. But you should only have one H1 tag. Also, you want to keep them in order, so that way, if you write an H1 tag, you don't want an H3 tag above it. Even though you're not reusing the H1 tag, don't have an H3 or H5 tag above that code line. It's not going to throw any errors. It's just when you're looking at, and I'm going to explain the main reasons. You're going to see why that's important. So typically, you just tend to scan quickly to find relevant content, so you want to have the correct order. Search engines index your site based on structure and then ranks you by it. So one of those key things is if you have an H3 above H1 tag, it'll flag you for it. Not like crazy, so it's not like you're doomed or anything like that. But you should try to get as many points as you can when it comes to Google crawling your site. So that's important. And to me, the most important reason is because don't think of yourself, think of others. And you'd be surprised how many visually impaired or how many people with disabilities visit sites. There's like this test. Also, I recommend you should take accessibility classes where like if you were to like look through your hand and then look at your screen, you'd see like what some people see, and it's very tough to read. So if you were to look at your site and seeing what they're saying, you'd be like, damn, that's not cool, you know. So what they usually have, they might have like some kind of sound or like a voiceover reader on the computer, and it'll tell them they'll read the tags for them. So this is a heading, and then they'll say whatever the contents of it is. So if they're following along with their reading, with the voiceover is reading the HTML content, and you don't have it in a good order, and it's all messed up code-wise, they're just gonna not use your site at that point. So that to me is the most important. It's, of course, being crawled by Google is also important, but I always think of the user first. Also, when you're styling your website, if you don't use the correct elements, that also impacts how quickly you can style things. So you're always targeting elements by their tags. So if you tag them correctly, it's going to make styling a lot easier, because you can say, I'm targeting my image tag, I'm targeting my heading tag, I'm targeting my paragraph tag. It's going to make a lot life easier on using it right. So I showed this already. What does this do? Oh, I guess it's already showed it right here, but that makes sense, right? Like using the strong tag. And then this shows the underline, so it's just a simple U. I remember I was saying like the B is the bold, so U's also like the original one. And then EM for italicizing it or emphasizing it. You can kind of see a little bit.
How would you do it if you want something bold, underlined, and italicized.
Try it out.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Appreciate
You should try it out. But basically, you just surround them. So you could have like like just have. He said, I'm just gonna use the bold for now, but you should use strong, and then underline.
Oh, I get you.
But notice the order.
It has to be this, it flips.
Right, so I have my bold, which opens, and then nested within it is my underline, and then nested within that is my italic, and then here's my content. And I close first the one that just opened, because it's nested, and then the second one, so the parent one, and then the grandparent one.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
So remember, this is an element, and then this is an element, and then this whole thing is an element. If you mix those up, again, browsers like Chrome, it sucks for when you're developing, you're just seeing it on Chrome because you won't catch these issues a lot of times. Because you might put the U before the EM, but you won't know that's an issue until someone visits your site on Internet Explorer and they're like, hey, your site is all messed up. And you might spend, it could take you, especially if it's your first time building sites, it could take you a lot of time figuring out, oh, it was just that dumb. I can close it right now. It makes sense. There's tools now they're called lints, and basically you just copy and paste your code. I think even what did you say you were using on Sublime?
Well, it wasn't checking the code, but you would just type in a tag and hit tab, and it automatically puts things into brackets. I guess correctly, so you're not mixing up the closing tags.
So you can try it out, but maybe either that one or other tools while you're typing, it'll like maybe throw you an error.
Like the W3 Schools website, the official HTML organization, they have that the HTML checker on their website, so you can do that.
So it'll catch you. It'll tell you what line of code where you have that problem with. But so you just nest them, but just make sure they're in the right order. The next piece is HTML hyperlinks, so basically links. Hyperlinks are really important. They are what makes the web a web. They allow us to link documents to any other document or resource we want to. We can also link to specific parts of documents. We can make apps available at a simple address. Contrast this to native apps, which have to be installed and all that business. So basically what I'm saying here is like you have applications that you have to install from an app store, which you have to have an account, you might have to pay, or you might have to you forget to log in. But it's just visiting a website and seeing what you could do the same thing on an app. So the link tag, can anybody tell me what the href is?
Reference.
Is the actual US URL.
Would it stand for hyperlink reference?
It's hypertext reference,
Oh,
but
hypertext.
if this is my tag, if A is my tag, what is this? Like not what it does, but what is it?
The attribute.
The attribute. So it's the attribute of my link tag. But yes, it's the reference to it. Another attribute is the title tag. Title tag is also important, specifically for accessibility reasons, also for Google to know what that link is. You don't have those things, again, it's not a dead end, but you will get hit for ranking reasons. So you want to have a title with your links. If you want to open a link in a new window, you type in target. Target's an attribute, and then you set the value to _blank, and that will open up the link in a new tab. Yeah, actually, too. You could write it. Should be this weekend. I'll be uploading all the videos too, so I'll have reference to all these things. But you can write it. So this is an example of linking to an internal page. So pretty much if you have another HTML file, you can refer to it that way. So like I'm saying about.html. So right now, if you guys were to create a file called about.html and you want to link to it, you would do that exact code right there, and it would work. You want to link to an external website, you would put the whole URL. So sites would need some kind of HTTP protocol. So Google has a secure one, so it's HTTPS ://google.com or whatnot. If I wanted to open up a new tab, is that possible? Or a new window, the Google one? I just use this, right? Just to target equals _. And then that second link would open up in a new tab. You can also link to an email if you just put in mail to : and then the email. It's when you click on the email and then. Sometimes I hate these because especially you're on a computer, you don't have the mail app open, and you click on it, it opens up a program and you don't want to use it. So sometimes I don't like it, but that's how you can do it. It's great for mobile though, because usually on mobile you have your email set up already. And then phone number is really great on mobile. You just put TEL for telephone, and then : and then the phone number. And then images are pretty easy. It's just an image tag. Remember that the image tag does not close. And another important about image tag, just like the links need a title, images need an alt tag. And that basically is just an alternative text for it. So basically, if a browser cannot see your image for whatever reason, or remember if someone with disabilities is on your site and they want to know what your picture is about, Google is like that kind where they're not a person, it's basically a computer reading your site. So they don't know what it looks like. They cannot see the picture, but they can know what it is if you write an alt tag. If you do not write an alt tag, it won't know what your picture is about. So therefore, it's not called. And then another quick example for image dimensions is you write the width and height attributes in there. You can do this with CSS, which we'll go over in another class, but without writing CSS, you can do this. And then you guys already did file structure. So the last thing that I wanted to go over is you already have your index.html. I want you guys to create a folder called images. And then if you want to add photos in there, you could. You can start creating your CSS folder. You don't need to right now. As long as you have your index.html and your images folder and add a picture in there.